Afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. I am out here cruising around in my third gen 2023 Toyota Tacoma. How much longer are you going to be able to say that with the fourth gen coming out? And speaking of the fourth gen, you know, I've been thinking about it myself. I mean, I will be getting one, and it's still the same plan. Gonna hold off until probably next year is the way it's going to work for me, because I want the full Monty. I want the hybrid version. I have decided that if I'm going to get a new Tacoma and I have to have a 4-cylinder, I'm going to get the one that has the most power and the most acceleration and the most technology in it. Because why not? What I have right now is perfectly fine. I don't need a new truck. And for the channel, I think it would be the best version to get. You know, I had thought about getting just a regular 4-cylinder turbo and then using that as a stepping stone and moving up to the hybrid. But I don't really want just a 4-cylinder turbo. You know, I think it's going to be something similar to the Ford Ranger. And I've driven a Ford Ranger, and I was not impressed with it. I mean, it was quick enough off the start, but it was disappointing otherwise. Didn't seem to have anything left after the start. I floored that truck, and I got one of those look backs, you know, from the truck itself. Like, what the heck are you doing, man? You're not supposed to do that. This is a 4-cylinder turbo. So I don't want that. I don't want that in my new Tacoma. And I got to admit, and I talked about this recently in a video, after having the Prius, I know, the Prius of all things, with its 2-liter hybrid system, I'm pretty impressed. And if Toyota carries that over into the Tacoma, with some tweaks, of course. I mean, the Tacoma is obviously a truck, it's bigger, it's heavier, we're going to need a little bit more out of it. But if they carry it over, it should be fantastic. So the question is it wise to get the new Toyota Tacoma? And I'm talking about the 4-cylinder turbo. You know, I get a lot of comments on the channel about that specifically, and that you don't know what it is. It's not been tested in the form of being out in the market and all of us being the guinea pigs, right? I mean, they can do all the testing that they want, but until it's out in the field, until you and I are driving it, who knows how it's really going to hold up. So I think from that standpoint, a first-year model, and everybody always says this, never buy a first-year model. Now, I don't mean to sound hypocritical here, because as I mentioned, I just bought a new Prius. It is a first-year model, a redesign. I didn't even listen to my own advice. So you've always got to do what you're comfortable with in the end. And I think with Toyota, we can feel a little bit better about buying a first-year model because it's Toyota. You know, they put out quality products, reliable products, and I think there's a little bit less fear. Less fear than if you were buying, say, the new Ford or the new Chevy or the new Ram. You know, they have their issues ongoing, whether they're new models or not. I don't think we're going to have that issue with the Tacoma. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be problems. I think there will be problems. No company is perfect, and no company can test enough, as I mentioned, how you and I are going to use them. You know, I think of an article I read a while back. This has to do with the Jeep Gladiator. Somebody bought one of those, and because it's an off-road vehicle, they figured they could submerge it in a mud hole. Well, they had all kinds of trouble and ended up suing Jeep or Stellantis or whoever they are now. They ended up suing them because they believed that as an off-road vehicle, they should have been able to submerge it up past the doors and not have any issue. I never did hear how that turned out. Maybe Jeep settled with them, I don't know. There was a lot of negative publicity, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You know, I'm sure Stellantis, Jeep, never thought that somebody would take their new Wrangler or Gladiator out there and treat it like it was a submarine, right? But people do. So until we get them and we fumble around with the buttons and use the different settings and overload it like everybody does, you know, there's always a tolerance when it comes to anything, right? And that's true when it comes to towing and hauling and all that stuff. You know, the Toyota Tacoma is a mid-size truck, and it's not set up to tow tons and tons of things, nor is it set up to haul tons and tons of things. But what happens when you do? Because we all do it. I've done it. I remember a few years ago, I would go get mulch or dirt or whatever, primarily dirt, at the local greenhouse, and they would come up with their big dump thing and dump it in there, and my truck would go boom, and it would bounce a little bit, and I knew it was overloaded. You can never tell what the moisture content of what you're putting in when it's mulch or dirt or whatever, so it's always going to be heavier than you anticipate. I think a lot of times when we look up the weights of things, and I always do this, I always did it back then, but I would search on the net, what does a bucket load of dirt weigh? Well, that's under ideal circumstances or conditions where it's not soaking wet. And we know it can be when it's sitting at the greenhouse, right? Fuel economy is another thing. That might be the only reason, if that concerns you, and I don't know why it would. I mean, it is a truck, as everybody likes to say. Is the new Tacoma going to get some stellar fuel economy? Is there going to be a huge bump? No, I really don't think so. I think there'll be an improvement, but I think, again, that's under ideal conditions and probably only 1 to maybe 3, 4, maybe 5, if we're lucky, miles per gallon. Of course, I'm talking about the Turbo 4. I think that's the one that's going to be just a few miles per gallon. When we think about the hybrid, I think that's going to be a bit more. I don't think it's going to be hugely substantial. I don't think it's going to get 50 miles per gallon, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Toyota's got something in their back pocket they're going to throw at us. Maybe it'll be somewhat Prius-like. Who knows? Anyway, I just wanted to get on and talk about that. Is it wise? It kind of depends, on what your own tolerance is. If you don't mind a few hiccups, a few glitches here or there, then it's probably not a big deal. If you depend on your truck to have it for work every day, or maybe you're a big-time off-roader and you're out in the middle of nowhere, well, the last thing you want to have happen is a turbo failure or maybe something else because it's a new truck. It's going to have a lot of tech on it, going to have a lot of electronic gizmos and things, and anything could go out and leave you stranded somewhere. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you willing to take the leap, forgetting about it being a 4-cylinder turbo, or maybe not, and go ahead and buy that brand new Tacoma that's coming? I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.